Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. Just really glad to have the opportunity to share some of the work that we're doing to support African Nova Scotian learners in Chignecto Central Center for Education. My story is a unique story in terms of the way that I entered education. I graduated from Teachers College as a French immersion teacher, Nova Scotia Teachers College, and then there was some kind of a glitch down at the central office, and my applications got put on the late pile. So as a result, at the time, they had what they called the Five Schools Project, and I entered into the former Halifax Regional School Board under this Five Schools Project, teaching at Harborview School. I was in Halifax Region for 6 years, 6 wonderful years, and then I was called back to Chignecto Central. So I think that was instrumental in terms of providing a foundation of support within the African Nova Scotian community. I was embraced in the Halifax region, and I was supported. And Marlene and I worked together very early on, and so it was wonderful seeing her again in this role. So I have very special earrings on today. These are for good luck. My son is 24 years old, Jordan, and he has autism. So I have the autism earrings on to give me that right vibe, and so I'm really pleased to be sharing with you today. I think that I'll just go ahead and start. Now, I'm not as familiar with Google Meets in the presentation, so I'm hoping that it comes up. I'll try to bring it up.
While you're doing that, I can say, your history with regions, it certainly well equipped you for the position and being able to understand, the experiences across the province and how they can differ from one region to another. So that really becomes a strength, that diversified background that you have, Shelley.
Marlene, I think you have to give me permission to share. I think. Share my screen yeah. No, it says you must grant permissions in order to share screen. I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to ask Carrie if she can do that.
Okay.
While we're waiting. So maybe while we're waiting for that, Shelley, if you could talk about some of your leadership experiences within the regions while we're waiting.
I'll talk about one of my best experiences was I started out teaching grade 3 and 4 at Harborview School, and I had not been trained for early elementary. And after moving through that, it was wonderful connecting to the community and providing a role model, because sometimes people make assumptions. They think because you're Black that you're automatically connected to the community. But I was able to, again, make those connections with families, and a lot of them lived in the immediate area, and I did home visits and those kinds of things. When I came back to Truro, the opportunities were a little bit different. I had spent my very last year at Graham Creighton Junior High School teaching integrated French and late immersion, and it was a wonderful experience. First time being in a school where there was a significant African Nova Scotian population. Okay. Yeah, and so that was a wonderful experience, and also having an African Nova Scotian administrator. Ken Fells was there at the time, so it was very, very important, and that was the launch point with the encouragement from Ken to go and get my master's. So that was significant. Including will be recorded.
Shelley, something started to come up on the screen. I just noticed.
I know, I saw that. Yeah. Present your entire screen. No, it still says I can't share. I don't know what's going on here. maybe Marlene, do you want me to share it with you?
Yeah, if you share it with me, and then I can take the cues from you.
Okay, no worries.
Thank you.
There. Yeah, I just sent it to you, so. Yeah, and then I guess I could share. And coming back to Chignecto Central, formerly the school board, I was teaching junior high, and all of the schools that I was in, none of them had a significant African Nova Scotian population at the school, but I was very comfortable, even so, because I was born and brought up in Truro. So I had connections to families, even though there weren't a lot of African Nova Scotian students. I was in one country school, and then I moved to Truro Junior. And once I moved to Truro Junior, I never really left. I left for 2 years to do administration, and then I came back. So that was where, before moving into this position, where I spent most of my teaching career and administrative career. And I was fortunate enough, in Truro Junior provided a very unique experience. And the school is situated on the street that I grew up in. It's situated in a historical African Nova Scotian community. And the community was very, very proud. And I was the first Black principal in the town of Truro. So quite a few milestones. And in that work, I feel very fortunate to be the person to have had the opportunity to carry on that work, and have the community also feel supported and feel the significance of that position. Are we up and running yet? No. Feel weird talking about myself.
That's one of the things I think we don't stop very often to remember the successes and celebrate that journey, and give ourselves that space to look back and see, what we have actually been a part of, and the things that you have actually been a part of, and you've been the first in so many ways and embedded in the community. So
yeah,
I'm glad that.
I think one of the important things to note is when I first started my journey, it was I was looking at it as impossible. So if there's many people that have paved the way, which I am so grateful and so thankful, at the same time, when you're moving into what you call uncharted territories, it seems insurmountable in some ways. So doing a master's degree and then going back and doing another one, the second time around wasn't too bad, but the first time around, it's very scary. We as people are conditioned, and we know that through the school system, there's not a lot of examples of Black excellence. So I feel fortunate to have been able to be a person that I feel in many ways has provided that example for some of my students, and my community members, and people that I am still in contact with to this day. So I feel fortunate to have been a part of the Halifax Regional Center for Education. I still feel in many ways that was my original family, and I'm still connected to many folks there. So I feel grateful. Good training ground.
Okay, we have it just about. We have it just about right.
Okay. I hope I wasn't providing the echo there.
Okay, celebrating the impact. Should be showing on the screen, and just let me know.
Just press present and we're ready to go.
Okay.
Wonderful. Okay. So yes, I'm going to be talking about celebrating impact and talking about some of the work that we've been doing in our board that very thankfully Marlene referred to the inclusion education policy. And I'm going to be referring to the inclusive education policy at different times through this conversation. So this is very important to me, and it's really ironic that Marlene mentioned that as well as one of the pillars. You can click again, Marlene, knowing them as they're known. And one of the things that we've gotten feedback from different folks in schools.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Oh, I'm going.
I'll keep talking. Different folks in schools is that our children, African Nova Scotian children, often feel invisible. So these are two beautiful young primary students. And when I think about African Nova Scotian students, I automatically think of Black excellence, and that's what I want to model, and that's what I want to portray to anybody that I work with, whether it be here at central office, my student support workers, principals, teachers out in schools. The first young lady's name is Nerian Foster, and she was born in Canada. Her family roots are in Jamaica, and she's in primary French immersion. And the other young lady on the left is Lucia Cromwell, and her mom is, I don't know her parents specifically, but her mom is one of the working for the Supreme Court justices. So that's very exciting. And also, we already see excellence in these young ladies entering into a program where they're going to be learning a second language, one of the official languages in our country. So we want to continue to support them. Beautiful. Okay, we're good. So we want to talk about what inclusive education looks like for African Nova Scotian students. And I think about Geneva K because often we talk about authentic relationships with African Nova Scotian students, but we don't explain to people what that looks like in terms of learning. So Geneva Gay says caring interpersonal relationships are characterized by patience, persistence, facilitation, validation, and empowerment for the participants. And often we have misunderstandings, and people get to know our kids on the surface, but they don't, for many reasons, get to know truly who they are. And this is really important when it comes to learning. They need to be patient and persistent and understand it's their responsibility to validate and empower our kids in the learning environment. So I'm also going to be talking about, I set up to talk about the CRP work that we've been doing in our Center for Education. Tier 1, we've done a lot of work I'm going to talk about building capacity around CRP and ongoing supports. I'm also going to be touching on African Nova Scotian support workers and the important role that they are playing and will continue to play in our schools. And I'm also going to be talking about the intensive math and literacy support that many designated schools have taken part in to give that intensive support and boost to our African Nova Scotian learners. And in some ways, it's also trickled into Tier 3. So I'll go into explaining that a little bit further on. So the CRP work is really important to make sure that we're showing folks how to embed our students' ways of knowing and being in the learning. So in CCRCE, our system improvement plan, I took a couple of examples here. We've committed to a system where we can provide relevant and authentic learning experiences. Staff members and students collaborate to create culturally responsive learning environments, and students are engaged in learning opportunities that are relevant to their lived experiences. And so in the work that we're doing, we're really trying to support teachers in the how, and knowing that those relevant learning experiences is a way to engage and connect. So strategically and intentionally setting those up for our students and knowing your audience, knowing who these children are and their stories, and the beautiful brilliance they have and the cultural assets that they bring to the table. So that's what we're committed to in CCRCE and some of the work that I've been doing. So entering into this position, people were talking a lot about CRP, but a lot of people did not know what it was, because CRP is the way by which we know that folks can build that capacity to ensure that our students have success. So starting kind of from scratch, we started working with our believers. So we were finding some high schools were reaching out. So in 2021, we provided PD sessions with school staffs. Hanseast Rural High School, which has some African Nova Scotian students, but a large Indigenous population. North Nova Education Center in New Glasgow. They have a vice principal who is trained in CRP. So he has a lead team. So they're kind of leading the way. Spring Hill Junior Senior High, done a lot of work there, and they are now have a lead team up and going with some teachers. And the way that the lead team started, other than at North Nova, was Drew, my culture responsive coach, was going in at the request. He's a coach, so he has to be invited in. So he was invited in to work with some teachers. The thing that was a catalyst to that was that I was able to have some time at senior management, and also which led to some meetings, all the principals meetings. So we have 4 families of schools, and I was able to go in and talk about the need for CRP in their schools and to get going. One thing that I was also able to do was have a meeting with high school principals to talk about them being the change they want to see in the world, because we were talking about model classrooms, and they were saying, well, I'd like to see my teachers need to see model classrooms. Okay, but I said, I'm going to challenge each and every one of you to set up the model classroom in your high school. Don't look for somebody else to do it. So that was an opportunity to sort of springboard, and now we're up and running at a faster pace. So I just have some schools listed there. The 2 schools in the second line are junior high schools that we've been in doing some work. And the last 2 are elementary schools that we've just begun, doing some work in those schools. Another piece of the CRP building capacity in Tier 1 is our CRP coach 6 weeks at Spring Hill Junior Senior High, 4 weeks at UNIAC, which is a P to 9, and Elmsdale, which is an elementary. Then back doing 4 weeks at HERH, which is Hanseast. And one of the reasons that we chose to do a little bit of rotation is, I know the deputy minister way back when she talked about doing intensive support, she said when she was involved in that work, she went in, she provided intensive support. She had a framework and a plan. They backed out. They went into another school. Then after a couple of weeks, they went and did a check-in back in the original place where they started. So we're using a little bit of that model, trying to get some schools going, but not being so detached that they can't connect with us, and doing check-ins in different ways. So that's the building capacity out in schools. That's what it currently looks like. And we've had a lot of feedback, and teachers are very eager to the how, because this is the showing them how to do it. Go ahead, Marlene. On a larger, grander scale, one of the things that we decided to do after our first year, which is the beginning of this year, we needed to get those mentors and coaches, the folks who are directly in contact with teachers, because we're only 2 people and we couldn't be in 69 schools. So math and literacy are key areas that we need to focus on. And so we decided we were going to do intensive CRP training with our math mentors and coaches and our literacy mentors and coaches. So this year we've had 3 sessions for each of those groups. The math sessions were in partnership with Lisa Lunny Borden at St. FX, and the explicit CRP training for literacy was done by me and my CRP coach, and we just did the last one last Friday to total 3. And we are excited about moving forward with other coaches and mentors that we haven't worked with yet, and that's tech integration specialists, youth pathways, French consultants, and pre-primary. So I guess what I could do, if I was going to connect this to work that I have experience doing, I started out at Truro Junior, they had asked me to be a model school, culture relevant pedagogy at my school. And so this was some of the work that we did. When you're doing intensive work, you have to make sure that, you know, the cook is involved, the janitor's involved, the librarian's involved. So we're trying to build that capacity right now in doing our CRP work and expanding our work. So it's the same model as when you do intensive work, to work for change, to try to make change. So this is a really exciting piece to speak to my African Nova Scotian student support workers. I feel that I came in with a little bit of a different lens, having been a principal and knowing the vital role that these folks play in our schools. And if we make reference to the Black report indicated, and the community doesn't lie, you know, that's a really important piece of research, that these folks are often a lifeline for our kids. They're a vital cultural connection and support, because in many, many cases, they're the only Black visible role model that these children see in our schools. And so in terms of cultural connection and that need, which every individual person needs, these guys are it. So some of the work that I was doing with my student support workers is I made sure that they were well informed about our system improvement plan. I keep them up to speed on, you know, different when things change within the system, so that they're well aware. So when they go into classrooms or they're working with teachers and our students, admin and our students, that the language that people are speaking, that things are making reference to, is not foreign to them. So they're well versed in the system improvement plan goals and where we're moving. I have monthly meetings. So providing cultural validation and affirmation for our kids is critical. They often have to go to student support workers for a recharge, because we know, as people of African descent, schools are not always welcoming spaces, that they can be very hostile. And with a lot of our learners, and knowing the historical context of Black people in Nova Scotia, it sometimes can be an extra layer that these kids cannot navigate. And so student support workers are vital. Promoting self-esteem and pride, being an advocate for students and affirming the need for certain things within schools, very important. And promoting support and belief, you know, like I made reference to, believing. If you don't see people in your world or in your scope that have done things, sometimes you believe that it cannot be done. So again, they play a huge role in that, in supporting our learners. So I've been doing a lot of work with student support workers. I have 10 student support workers. 5 of them are stationary. That means they stay in the same school. The 5 others are they move around. They do circuits. They move to different schools. Some circuits are larger than others. Really looking to, important to note, I'm really looking forward to providing more support in the corridor, which is Nova family of schools, Elmsdale, Lance, because a lot of our African Nova Scotian community members are moving out of the city. And so these kids are now going to those schools and need that support. So very important. So the intensive math and literacy support is something that I'm just going to give an overview on. I will say, I'll give you a little brief on some of these schools, but the support has been absolutely tremendous, and we have seen growth in every single one of these instances. One of the schools that I did not include had a mat leave, and the report was unfinished. So I didn't want to get into speaking about something that I wasn't aware of. So New Glasgow Academy is a PETA 9 school, and it serves a significant African Nova Scotian community. They've done some 6 and 7, and it's all of the math and literacy is done in small group. Now, one of the things that's really important is that we've seen some evidence at New Glasgow Academy, not only, but I'm going to mention that one. We had 2 students not participate or not want to participate. And so I think after having some conversation with the folks who were delivering the intensive support, it was delivered in a tier 2, tier 3 fashion where there was a combination of pullout and a combination of in-class. And I think I'm going to be going around with which was not done before, the math coordinator and the literacy coordinator to the schools and get feedback. And I think we're going to be moving to an in-classroom model because that's going to take away a barrier. We want to include as many of our students that we feel need support. So there's ongoing conversations about that. And I think that is the ideal. I'm just going to leave that one there. I have some other things that I want to mention. Uniacke District is a school where they don't have a lot of visible self-identified or visually racialized African Nova Scotian students, but they have quite a few identified students. So they did a 3-4 intervention, and it was all small group instruction, was only in math. And the kids went out every single day. So in every one of these examples of interventions, the kids went out, or it was in-class support every single day. So they received the intervention every single day. In Junction Road Elementary, they were very scripted, and they did 4 to 6 math intervention, 3 students in grade 4 and 3 students in grade 6. And they did small group, and it was all pullout intensive. And one of the things that's a challenge for that, in that, and I've seen that, and it has been done in my school as well with African Nova Scotian learners, it does not provide a link when the children transition back into the classroom. So that's why one of the main reasons, if the intensive support can happen in the classroom, in small group, that person who is highly skilled and well-versed in CRP is there modeling and has an opportunity to have those conversations with students and teachers in the classroom, then that's the best model. So some of the qualitative feedback from the facilitator, this is from Junction Road, West End, greater confidence, willingness to take risks, improve rigor, to take on the task, confidence in small group work and problem solving, and they showed improvement in post assessments. And so that qualitative feedback is really important. So confidence is noted too with our kids, and we know our experiences as African Nova Scotian learners in that area. This is what I love, is hearing what the kids have to say. So there was they did exit interviews in New Glasgow Academy. How did you feel about coming to Math Boost? Oh, I thought it was going to be fun, and I learned lots. I thought it was going to be boring, but it was actually really fun, and I learned a lot. So that qualitative feedback is really important, knowing that our kids felt success. Their experience was positive. What skills do you think you developed from your time in the session? I learned a lot about decimals and fractions, and I got better at it. We want our kids to feel good and feel confident when they go back into the classroom. So if this model, even though there was some in-class support, if we had all in-class support, then once the support is pulled away, the child already had time to practice in that environment. And so I think that is the best. So that's one of the things that we learned. There may still be, I guess, times when you may have to do a little bit of pull-out, but I think the model is going to be based in classroom, because I think that's where we've shown from what we've done and the feedback we've gotten that that's the best model to use. So this is something I'm really pleased about, and this is tied to what we just spoke about at New Glasgow Academy. So in this grade 7 classroom, there were at least 4 of our students, African Nova Scotian learners, that were a part of the intensive support. And with that, when they went back into the classroom, because the math mentor had been working with us on the CRP, she collaborated with the math teacher, and the whole entire grade 7 classroom did a lesson that was embedded in the experiences of our students, but it was good for each and every child. So they went up to the African Heritage Memorial, which is on Vale Road in New Glasgow, and you'll see the student support worker there, Glenda, you'll see our Black educator for the region, Crystal States is there, and you also see our African Nova Scotian learners. So if we want to talk about the tiers, our kids may have been on a tier 2 where it was pull out, partially classroom, but here we go full circle. We're back at tier 1. And really, essentially, what we want our children to be able to be touched and impacted in tier 1, so we don't have to do tier 2 and tier 3. So most of our work really needs to be at tier 1, but we're getting there by building capacity. We're already seeing evidence of where we're able to swing it back to tier 1, and those kids are able to function within those parameters. So I think that the intervention was very successful. Just more evidence. I just thought it was really important to show some evidence. We're fortunate enough to have a new Black teacher, other than the student support worker at New Glasgow Academy, and she was part of this. I used to tell my teachers when we first started CRP and they don't know the how, I always said, okay, if you want to start and focus on CRP, start local. Start with local stories, know your audience, know your student stories, but start with local. So this is local. So this is a newspaper, a mock newspaper that was created by the grades 3 and 4 at New Glasgow Academy. And they worked on constructing the newspaper, chronicling the past and present contributions within the New Glasgow's Black community. So it was concrete. The events and people that they were speaking about were connected to their community, right from their community. So it's the children's lived experiences, and it reinforces their ways of knowing and being and where they come from. And when we think about the Sankofa, you need to know where you've come from to be able to move forward and know where you're going. So I know that that's just a snapshot. Just one more slide. And I think I've reiterated this already. Where do we grow from here? Because we are in growing mode. And we realize that, and I often talk about growth and growing. And please notice that the flower has a brown face. That was very purposeful. We want to continue our capacity, building strategies for culture responsive pedagogy, knowing African Nova Scotians will benefit. We know that that's zoned in on our students. And shift as much of the intensive math and literacy intervention as possible to tier 1. So make sure that we're moving to build those tier 1 supports, so we see less of our kids at tier 2 and tier 3. The in-model classroom. So that's where do we grow from here? This is what we've learned. And thank you for listening. That's just a snapshot of what we're doing with our students, how we're focusing on their success and well-being. Thank you, everybody.